You ever have one of those days where you realize you're not just fighting for your pool keys, you're fighting for your whole damn life? That's where my story starts. No, scratch that. My story starts with a man in a police uniform standing on my porch, demanding my pool keys like he's collecting evidence at a crime scene. Not a hello, not a mind if I come in, just hand over the keys. And behind him, Karen, arms crossed, little smirk on her face, looking like she just called in an airstrike and can't wait to watch the fireworks. So, yeah, let's talk about power, because that's all this ever was. Karen thought she was just flexing on the new guy in the neighborhood. She had no idea she'd just wandered into the wrong damn movie. But before I tell you about the ending, before the blue lights and the badge and the handcuffs, let me rewind just a bit so you understand how I got there. See, I moved back here after my dad died. He built this house himself back in the 70s. The man could carve a porch out of cedar with nothing but stubborn pride and a hammer. I came home to keep it standing, not to fight over it. Then came the HOA. 6 weeks in, they roll up like the new sheriff in town. New board, new rules, same old story. And at the top, Karen Langford, retired realtor, self-appointed queen of property values, always ready with a smile, so sharp it could slice open your tires. 2 days after the welcome meeting, the first letter showed up. Unapproved structure detected. Pool requires inspection. My dad's pool, the one he built by hand. I ignored it. Then came fines. Then more letters. Then tonight, her husband, in uniform, here for my keys. But here's the thing. Intimidation is just another kind of paperwork. And I've spent my whole life dealing with worse. So when he tried to puff up, when she glared at me and said, "You either cooperate or we escalate," I just smiled. Because deep down, I already knew I wasn't the one on the defensive here. They were. And I just started my own investigation. You want a little history? I grew up here before anyone bothered with fences or bylaws. It was just me and my dad in a patch of wild land that smelled like pine and gasoline. That pool was a monument to sweat and stubbornness. My pops mixed every ounce of concrete in a wheelbarrow, laid every stone himself. He used to say, "Never let anyone claim what you've built." I didn't get it then. Now I live by it. Every summer, same soundtrack, cicadas, a hammer, water hissing as it hit the basin. Pops always said, if you build it right, you only have to build it once. He was building freedom as much as he was building a pool. When he died, I promised to keep both alive. So I cleaned out the leaves, fixed the filter, patched the cracks, made the place a home again. And then Karen knocked. She wore a blazer, even in July, and handed me a glossy pamphlet called Community Harmony Guidelines. She smiled, wider when I tried to smile back, like she just handed me a leash and couldn't wait to yank it. A week later at the HOA meeting, she called me out. "Mr. Cole, you have an unregistered water structure on your property." Laughter from the peanut gallery. "It's a pool," I said. She repeated, "unregistered," savoring it. "Then it's non-compliant." That's when I realized Karen didn't care about rules or safety. She cared about reminding people who's boss. And she didn't work alone. Her husband, Officer Langford, never far behind. Sometimes you'd see his cruiser parked just close enough that the headlights hit my mailbox. No ticket, no warning, just, "We're watching." That first night, I watched him right back. Stood on my porch with a beer, clocked the time until he finally rolled away. He wanted me to feel cornered. But I'm not wired that way. So I started keeping records, dates, photos, every letter. Dad taught me construction. The Bureau taught me documentation. If it's not written down, it's just an opinion. Over the next few weeks, things started getting weird. Bright yellow notices on my gate. Drones buzzing overhead. Neighbors walking their dog and snapping pictures. Karen called it community vigilance. I called it stalking. Caught her once by the fence, clipboard in hand. I said, "You know that's trespassing, right?" She just smiled, just verifying compliance. We can't have unauthorized pools drawing water from the community supply. I almost laughed. That pool was fed by the same spring my dad tapped 40 years ago. Groundwater and gravity. No community, anything. That's when I started digging. Through HOA bylaws, county plats, deed records, Page after page of noise ordinances and fence colors, but not a single clause about natural water. And that spring? Not even inside HOA boundaries. Didn't stop her from trying, though. Next, a letter marked urgent. $2, 500 fine for illegal community water use. No warning. Just debt by declaration. So I marched over to her house. She was in the garden, trimming roses, visor tilted. Is this a joke? I asked. Rules are rules, she chirped, stepping closer, lowering her voice. You think you're different because that pool was your daddy's? Around here, we do things by the book. I asked, whose book? Mine, she said, just like that. That night, I sat by the pool with a flashlight, thumbing through records. The air smelled like chlorine and pine, just like when Pops used to sit out there with his thermos. Don't let anyone claim what you've built, he'd say. Suddenly, it made sense. It wasn't about water. It was about standing your ground. Karen thought she'd won. Thought a fine and a threat would make me fold. But intimidation? That's just an invitation to fight back. So I built my own folder. Every document, every photo, every letter she'd ever sent. Then I wrote her back, big, bold letters across the top. You want paperwork? You'll get paperwork. Dropped it in her mailbox. Walked home under the same moonlight that glinted off her husband's cruiser. The next round wasn't going to be about HOA rules. It was going to be about the law, and I play by federal standards. After that, things got more creative. Drones buzzed overhead, neighbors with telephoto lenses documenting violations. Noise complaints. Anonymous reports of excessive splashing. One even claimed I was running a commercial facility out of my backyard. All lies. Every complaint triggered another letter, always hand-delivered by Officer Langford. He'd show up, lights off, engine idling, to slide the envelope through the gate. Never said a word. Karen, meanwhile, would drive by in her golf cart, watching, waiting. Once I tried to talk it out. Karen, can we just be reasonable? She looked up from her phone, talked to the board, then walked away. That's when I realized this wasn't random. It was a campaign. Inch by inch, wore me down until I gave up. It worked on other folks. One neighbor sold after getting fined for leaving a hose on his lawn. Another, written up for too many guests. Karen didn't enforce rules. She enforced fear. So I stopped reacting. I watched. I logged drone flights. I filmed the cruiser. I built a stack of facts while she built a stack of lies. Then, one late night, I was reading public HOA financial reports. No one ever checks those. That's when I found it. The pool maintenance fund. Thousands spent, no receipts, no contractors, just Officer Langford's signature. That's when I realized this wasn't just about power. It was about corruption. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. Neighbors complained about losing pool access, told to buy new passes from Karen for cash. No receipts, no record. Pool fees had ballooned from $2,000 to nearly $15,000 in a quarter. No explanation, but every record pointed to Karen and her husband. That's not just shady, it's illegal. Using police resources for private enforcement, that's a fast track to losing your badge. So I started gathering real proof. Audio recorders, cameras, motion sensors on the fence, one in the mailbox, one by the pool gate. Nothing fancy, just clear enough to catch faces. I wasn't looking for drama. I was building a case. And then it all went quiet. No more letters. No more drones. That kind of silence isn't peace, it's planning. The next HOA meeting was packed. Karen at the front, husband in back, both playing their parts. Officers can enforce community rules at any time, she announced, staring right at me. After the meeting, she smiled and said, "You should really consider selling. These things have a way of getting exhausting." That's when I knew they wanted to fight. I wasn't going anywhere. Things got petty. Mail started arriving half open. Trash cans tipped over at night. Orange violation notices taped to my work truck. But I stayed calm. Every notice, every incident, every drone flight, logged, photographed, time-stamped. The worst part? The neighbors acted like it was normal. Everyone too scared to cross her. She'd fine one guy for weeds, let another slide just to prove who was boss. The HOA was her kingdom, her husband the sword. One night, I found the cruiser parked in the same spot. Lights dimmed. I stood at the gate, phone recording. He didn't budge. 10 minutes, 15, then finally drove off. I went inside and matched his shift schedule with his parking log. Half the time, he wasn't even on duty, just using the uniform to scare me. That's not just unethical, it's abuse of authority. I almost left, looked up listings, but then I'd see the pool, remember Pops, and that line, "You only lose what you hand over." I'm not built to run. I finish what I start. The final straw? A white envelope taped to my door. HOA legal action. Cease and desist. Photos of my pool attached. Karen was claiming my private pool as community property. Her husband's signature on the letterhead, too. It was intimidation, dressed up as legalese. I called the county clerk. No official complaints, just internal action. Translation, bluff. A dangerous one, backed by a badge. That night, I organized everything. Drone footage, letters, meeting notes, photos of the cruiser, timestamps. The case was writing itself. Next morning, I drove to the county records office. Asked for historic plats, water rights. That's when I found it, Federal Watershed Protected Area. My dad's named my land. The water feeding the pool was under a federal easement, meaning no HOA, no local board, no Karen had any claim to it. Pops had filed for the permit decades ago. I called an old contact from my bureau days, Miller, now in environmental crimes. Sent him everything. And then, out of nowhere, allies started showing up. Linda, the treasurer, worn down, tired of Karen's games, handed me fake invoices, forged maintenance contracts. "That's theft," I said. "That's Tuesday," she replied. Tom Willis, retired city planner, helped me cross-check maps. Found that Karen had doctored the boundary lines, literally redrawing the map to make people think the HOA had more power than it did. "This is what happens when power gets bored," he said. Piece by piece, we built the case. Fake maintenance fees, shell companies, checks signed by Officer Langford. And all the while, Karen got sloppier. Flyers appeared on mailboxes. Non-compliant resident. Community safety concern. Photos of my house. My address. Trying to turn the neighborhood against me. Threats started coming. Handwritten notes in my mailbox. Sell before the fines triple. All on HOA stationery. But the evidence was mounting. Miller told me to keep collecting. And then I found the real twist. The pool insurance the HOA had been charging everyone for? Fake. Dissolved company. Karen was pocketing the money, covering it up with paperwork. By then, the neighborhood was changing. Folks started whispering, leaving notes, "Stay strong." She's unraveling. Tyrants don't fall with a bang. They unravel slowly, losing loyalty inch by inch. One morning, I got the email, "Emergency Community Enforcement Meeting." That was Karen's last play, public humiliation, stage confrontation. But she didn't know I'd agreed to wear a wire. Federal agents were parked half a block away. "Stay calm. Don't provoke," Miller said. "She'll dig her own hole." That night, the clubhouse was packed. Karen at the front, husband beside her, no badge, but holster on display. "Mr. Cole, thank you for joining us," she said, so sweet it could rot your teeth. She launched into a slideshow. My pool, my gate, my security cameras. This is what happens when one person refuses to respect community standards. Murmurs rippled. Her husband stepped forward. "I'm here to collect the community's property, the pool keys." I stood up. "You really want to make this official?" I said. And then I heard it. The low rumble outside. Black SUVs. Blue lights flashing. The room froze. Karen laughed nervously. "What's going on?" "Federal agents. Step back from the entrance," someone called. "Calm, final." Miller entered, suit crisp, eyes patient. He turned to Karen. "Mrs. Langford, we have a federal warrant to seize HOA records related to property fund misuse and jurisdictional fraud. Please step aside." She tried to protest. "We're just a homeowners association." But Miller had her. "Ma'am, you're under investigation for misappropriation of funds, wire fraud, and obstruction of federal property rights." Her husband moved toward his holster. Two agents closed in. "You are not acting in any official capacity here," one said. "Not tonight, ma'am." To Karen. They read them their rights. Karen pleaded, blamed me, but the evidence was all hers. Miller nodded to me. Thank you for your cooperation. It's over. As they walked Karen and her husband out, I watched their power dissolve. Years of bullying and manipulation evaporated in the glare of federal flashlights. The badge Officer Langford used as a weapon was now sealed in an evidence bag. It took 3 weeks for the dust to settle. Karen was charged. Wire fraud, misappropriation, falsifying documents. Her husband suspended, pending review. The HOA dissolved itself. My property rights restored. The pool was just a pool again. Linda brought over a folder one morning. Feels strange, doesn't it? Peace and quiet. Inside was emotion. The neighborhood wanted to rename the spring after my dad. Langford Spring Preserve. I built a little sign by the fence. Nothing fancy. Beneath it, I planted a sunflower, my mom's favorite. Sometimes I wonder what Karen tells herself now. Maybe she still thinks she was the hero. People like her always do. But the truth is simple. She tried to control what she couldn't understand, freedom. And freedom doesn't take orders. Now the neighborhood feels like a community again. Kids laugh by the lake. Neighbors stop to chat. No more fines, no more threats. Sometimes a kid asks, "Is it true you beat the HOA?" I laugh. No, son. I just reminded them who they work for. That's the lesson, isn't it? You can measure a person by what they control, but you should really measure them by what they protect. Real authority doesn't come from a badge or a title. It comes from standing your ground, from quiet integrity. Justice? It doesn't always roar in with sirens. Sometimes it arrives quietly, patient, inevitable like water finding its level. So now, I sit by the pool most nights, coffee in hand, watching the last lights scatter across the water. The fight's over. The peace finally feels earned. But tell me, have you ever seen someone abuse power just because they could? Drop your story below. Let's talk about where the line really is between order and control, between justice and revenge. And maybe, just maybe, your story will remind someone else that silence isn't surrender. It's just the calm before the right kind of storm.